First of all, gentlemen, we talked about The Division last week. We had a great old little chinwag about how that game's turning out and the beta, which is starting imminently as well. But an interesting thing happened. We went to the statistics meeting on our Monday morning, as we do here at GameSpot, and for some reason, views on Ghost Recon Wildlands had just spiked last week. It got us asking the question: was the gameplay that we were sort of hoping for The Division, the sort of this partying up, open world, sprawling sort of find your own adventure experience, was that actually more of what's going on in Ghost Recon Wildlands than in the Division? So we saw Wildlands at E3 last year. I'm kind of just interested in your guys' perspective on what Wildlands is, because a lot of this has to do with perception. What is the game? Peter, to you, what do you think Ghost Recon Wildlands is, and what do you think the Division is? Is it hard for you to devise which is which? Because both the Ubisoft games, both are third-person shooters. What in your head, gameplay-wise, how do they seem different at this stage?
It's hard for me to offer too much because I haven't really thought about that game a lot since E3.
Right.
But reading a bit about it before the show this morning, I mean, it sounds like it's a much more... It's a game that focuses on the tactical aspect of teamwork and in solving an issue. And from what I understand about the Division, that's not so much the case. There obviously is some tactical considerations at hand, but it's also I don't know how to characterize it, but it sounds like there is maybe more substance to the tactical side of a game,
right?
Like Wildlands.
Yeah, because what we've sort of seen from the Division since they've been showing a lot of gameplay is that it's quite wave based. It seems like you're
it's a cover shooter.
We're looking at Wildlands here, which is a game set in Bolivia. You were sort of a set of U.S. undercover agents, as the ghosts tend to be, who are going in to kill a bunch of cartels. Ubisoft Paris are making this, who did the old generation versions of Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. I think that was around the same time that they acquired Red Storm, who made the proper GRAW experiences, but they worked on that sort of stuff. Red Storm aren't involved in this. They're actually working with Ubisoft Massive on the Division. But yeah, as we're seeing from the gameplay here, it seems to be, and you have to be super careful here because this is all this is representative of the final product, which has gotten Ubisoft into trouble with Watch Dogs, and you could say the Division sort of feels a little bit different as well. But what we have learned from it is that you can go in all guns blazing, you can use sniper rifles, you can use stealth, you can level up your character, there's an element of customization. There's stuff like friendly or hostile NPCs in the world that you can get into conversations with, and apparently that's going to change your stake within the wider world. And then the other thing, and this is sort of, I feel like a lot of games are trying to throw their hat in on the co-op side of things. And then there are folks like me who are loners who prefer to play games on my own. I love Fallout and The Witcher, Metal Gear Solid, and they're games that you play on your own. This game you can play on your own. The Division, apparently, you can also play on your own. But all we ever see in these games when they're showing them off, and we saw with Wildlands when they showed it at E3, and we've seen it with every Division piece of gameplay as well, is co-op experiences. Why do you think that is, Mike? Are you interested in co-op games? Does that turn you off, or does it actually make it more interesting? Because I guess there's big money in games like Destiny, right?
Yeah, it's not my preferred way to play. Speaking of co-op, I also prefer single-player experiences, but I really do like when things can take co-op and make it something special, like Left 4 Dead, or I liked Destiny's co-op features, but that's what the thing about Wildlands seems like. I'm hoping it's what Pete said. It's more of the tactical side of things. You can go in, the trailer showed going in with the Jeep and everybody just firing off rounds, but then the stealthy one was kind of just having a sniper train on the main guy they were trying to extract and everybody going in stealthily. But what I think they might end up going for, and what it appears they're going to go for, is more of a cooperative third-person Far Cry. Right. Because Far Cry itself, the way they describe the open meta world of Wildlands is kind of more, they said there would be outposts from what I believe. This might have changed since E3, but it'd be more, kind of commanding certain parts of the map and then teaming up with people and then kind of, clearing it out and then finding new missions around the world.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a Ubisoft, the formula, right?
That sounds like the structure they always kind of go with.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they go with what Pete said, because that was the main draw of Ghost Recon games to me. Is I really like the tactical side of things, and the co-op really worked out with those. I actually really liked Future Soldier. It wasn't my favorite thing, but I thought they nailed, especially in the campaign, the co-op campaign, they nailed that kind of teamwork. So I hope that's what they go for, as opposed to the Division, which seems RPG focused, more of these MMO instances.
And that kind of seems like why people are disappointed as well, a little bit, is because they thought that the Division was going to be a little bit more nuanced that way, but it seems like it's just a cover shooter, like a basic cover shooter.
And the thing that got me excited about The Division was the setting. I mean, the fact that it's in New York City, it's winter. I love snow. A lot of people love snow. And it was dealing with an outbreak that has sort of caused this hysteria. But when you're describing like the laundry list of features that they're going for with Wildlands, I kept thinking to myself, like you could apply that list to so many games over the past 5 years, and maybe just take one feature out and switch it with another. I can't get really excited about these games, and maybe that's just me because it's not really my thing. It's not my taste. But I don't know. Like, The Division seems to offer so much more in terms of an interesting world than something like Wildlands. I mean, is the functional gameplay aspect of it, the little things it's bringing to the table, that interesting to get back into an experience that on the surface level to me seems so predictable and like other games? Like, what is really differentiating this? Is it just that it's new and that they add in one other feature that maybe the last game like it didn't have? Is that it?
Or is it that it's a co-op experience? The thing about
that's just it. Like, is co-op enough for them to spend millions of dollars making this
I mean,
game?
it was for the crew, right? Like, that was basically a driving game like so many other driving games. I know, right? Like, it tried something at least with the maps, but like, that's what it was, right? It was open world, and it was co-op.
Yeah.
And that was basic. And you could actually say the same thing about Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 also big open worlds, bases, all that stuff. Like, that's what Far Cry 3 was. Far Cry 4 also had co-op. Like, did I played crap at a Far Cry 4. Did any of you do co-op in that game at all?
I didn't do co-op.
You didn't? Did you give it a go?
Yeah, because then you could do like the what they call the vertibirds or whatever. Oh, that's like resistance.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could use those little
Vertibirds
gyro
is
choppers.
Fallout.
Yeah, and then you can have some person with a grenade launch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting everything mixed up now. You can do like one person with a grenade launcher going over the base, but those were like the cordoned off instances where you could do co-op, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in the whole.
Could you not?
Or
I
could
thought
you?
you could.
Oh, no, you could. But then
there
was like the certain actual what's his like Huck. His missions were only
right.
co-op.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Far Cry 3 had a co-op mode, which was instance. That
right,
was
that
like
was
off
more
to
of
the
like
side.
a linear shooter,
Yeah.
which that was kind of a disappointment. But yeah, Far Cry 4, incorporated it pretty well because I know for a while that's what I was hoping for from a game was to have open world co-op where it wasn't like sectioned off into its own thing. And Far Cry did that well, but I don't know that it's as enticing as it used to be.
I'm really interested to hear what folks have to think about this, actually, if there's one or the other that they're kind of looking forward to. While I sort of throw that out there, can you release both these games the same year? Because they seem like they're doing similar, even if, like, Peter, what you were saying was the contemporary setting of The Division was definitely something that sets it apart from other games. It's probably one of the most notable differences. The new Ghost Recon game also set in sort of contemporary times. It's not future like Future Soldier,
right,
but it's set, in a sort of a tropical, Bolivia. It's interesting in its own way as well. It looks different. Can you release these two games in the same year, considering they're both essentially third-person co-op shooters coming out of the same company, like different studios, but it's not all that different.
But the thematic things that sort of define the world might speak to a certain demographic, where the Ghost Recon is sort of going for that military feel. So people who actually like that stuff will say, yeah, The Division, fine, but military shit, that's where I'm at.
Like, it's more legit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with The Division, it's sort of a wider gamut of who can get into it because it is more like a slice of life, in this sort of fantastical scenario versus a military covert op in Bolivia. I think that really speaks to a certain type of person. Like, I could give a shit about what guns they're using. Like, oh yeah, they actually use that.
Right.
Some people do, and that's cool for them. But I don't think they're going to be the same people who fawn over The Division just because the base gameplay may have you think we identify with a lot of games because of the world they present us and the story they tell us, whether it's overt or just suggested. And those games both tell very different stories overall. So I think it's okay. I don't know that it's going to ride or die based on whether the gameplay is similar or different than another game.
Right. A lot of people in the chat saying the same thing. Sparks V, Red Animator, Wildlands delayed to spring of 2017.
Oh, sure. I mean, we haven't heard about the game since E3. Like, knowing Ubisoft and how they tend to market these things, like, that says something. I mean, even if it's just that they can't afford to, maybe back to your point, they can't afford to, confuse the market with too much advertising around different games or too much different, preview events. Not so much the games are competing because they're in the same similar genre, but because it's just the audience only has time for so many games.
Yeah,
that might just be it.
And we're like looking at this very much as a snapshot of what's what we know right now at the end of January 2016. Like, this conversation a month ago would have been so different. This conversation 6 months ago would have been different. So I guess last question on this, I kind of want to gauge interest in your guys. If you had to pick one of these games right now, because this is kind of something I want to revisit maybe in the future, which one are you more interested in, and for what reason? Mike, first of all.
Oh yeah, ever since the E3 last year, I've been really interested in Wildlands. I think that would have to be my pick, although we don't know a ton about it. But if they do what they appeared to do in E3 with that tactical bent and that really more confined, like 4-person kind of gameplay, as opposed to The Division, which needs more MMO-ish, I definitely have to pick Wildlands.
What about yourself, Pete?
For The Division, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I like the setting and the themes in the story, but I also like kind of the openness where people can cooperate and turn on each other if they want. Like I think that'll create some interesting dynamics when it comes to a group trying to succeed or survive.
Hopefully we won't have to pick from these games. Hopefully both will come out with a little bit of space around them, and they'll both be interesting in their own ways. But right now, if I had to pick, probably because I'm a massive Ghost Recon fan and I enjoy the sort of being out in like open, I guess not the city stuff is interesting, but I enjoy being out in the wilderness a little bit.
You're a nature boy.
I'm a nature boy. I play games like The Long Dark, and I go off and fall out and rummage in bushes when people aren't looking, and that's what I want to do in Bolivia. Finally, let's go to La Paz and act like a crazy, weird U.S. Marine shooting up cartel people. I don't know. It seems more interesting because of the videos they've shown. And that's kind of what I'm worried about, is that The Division more have seen, it's like, oh, the gloss is coming off a little bit.
If they can do something interesting with Bolivia, that's kind of cool. And like I know the team went there for a few weeks to talk to locals and figure stuff out. To the extent, I don't know, but I think if they can tell an interesting story, like I hate to keep beating that drum, but that can actually make me really interested in that game because, I mean, I like Metal Gear, which has a lot of military-esque stuff going on, but I don't really like military stuff. And why is that? Because of, the other stuff surrounding it.
Yeah, devil's in the detail. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Let us know what you think. What are you looking forward to more if you had to pick? Thankfully you don't, but The Division, Ghost Recon Wildlands, let us know in the comments below which one you're looking forward to, which one you hope comes out in 2016.